Did you know in George Lucas's earliest scripts for Star Wars, before they were called the Jedi Knights, they were called the Jedi Druids? Yeah, they were. And I've always wondered, one of the questions I would love to ask him is, did he read Ross Nichols' book? Because it would have been out for, I think, about 6 years before he started working on the first script for Star Wars. There's a lot about them that feels like it's like right out of Ross Nichols' brain. It's a very similar. I bring that up because today we're going to be talking about Nwyfre. Normally I tell a story to get us in, but I think for this topic, this is where you need to both bring to mind anything that you know about the Force from Star Wars, but also kind of put that to the side. Because while they're similar ideas, they're very different ideas as well. Let's talk about Nwyfre today as we walk together down creations. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christo-Pagan Druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christo-Pagan Druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
Today, we're going to be talking about Nwyfre. And if you've been a long-time listener to the podcast, you may be like, again? Yes, again. We're probably going to talk about it a lot. A lot. Maybe not as a standalone episode, but Nwyfre is so built into everything that we do in Druidry that it is a very important idea. If you want more about this, we have done a previous episode about it in our Church of the Oak series. So you can go check it out there and get more. We're going to repeat a little bit of what we said in that episode, but I really want to go deeper and relate it more to what we read in chapter 5 of Druidcraft. It's not going to be the same thing. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever the app is you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christo-Pagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss a thing. We have a lot of cool stuff planned out. Not just our Druidcraft 101, but we got some good stuff coming up for you. All right, let's just get into it. Nwyfre. Just for starters, for anybody who's new to this term, the idea of Nwyfre is not ancient, we don't think. The first recording we have of Nwyfre being used in this way is in the works of Iolo Morganach, who we need to change the official spelling of his name to end with an asterisk because I feel like they're
True.
like Iolo Morganach is an interesting figure in the history of both the Welsh culture and Druidry. He wrote a book called The Barthas, which he claimed to have found and translated these works, and none of the works contained in the Barthas have ever been found anywhere else. So he did not find it. The reason I'm being generous with him is for 2 reasons. One, while he did forge quite a bit of Welsh poetry, and both in the Barthas and elsewhere, he was instrumental for the kind of saving the Welsh language and the Welsh culture. And his forgeries were so good, it took a long time for people to realize, like, wait, when I go to the library, he said he found this book, they don't have it. Like, his Welsh forgeries were really, really good. But when it comes to his Druid stuff, it is important to bear in mind that he was a Druid. He was a practicing Druid. He started a Druidic order, and an order that we know that William Blake was a member of. I don't know where the line is here between this being his unverified personal gnosis that has been the tradition forever, put in the mouths of the ancients to make it seem more wise, and how much of this was just him writing stuff out of whole cloth. It's really hard to tell. We've done episodes about this in the past. You can go back and get into that. But that's the first place we find the concept of Nwyfre. It's a very interesting idea because it's not what it's usually compared to. There are a lot of people that think that this was because Iolo was writing during the time when Orientalism was a big force in England. The idea was that he had heard somebody talk about chi or ki or maybe prana and just kind of slapped on a Welsh name for it and kind of co-opted it into his work. While I cannot say definitively that he did not do that, if he did, he didn't do a very good job of it because his idea of Nwyfre is so different from what you find in the discussions of chi and prana, or ki, if you're using the Japanese word. There are actually a lot of words for this kind of energy of the cosmos. Think about mana, there's a lot of them. His idea was that this is not soul related. Like, it really is much more the force, except for this is in the long before there was a Star Wars, that this is something that is generated by life and that sustains life, but it isn't life itself. It is a substance. It is an etheric substance that exists in the universe. This is one of the reasons why I usually bring up Star Wars when we talk about it, because it is much more akin to the Jedi idea of the Force that you see in those books, which again makes me wonder in movies, and it makes me wonder how much George Lucas had actually read about this. In Druidcraft, you can see how this notion of Nwyfre has grown and developed within Druidry since, because wherever it came from for the last 300 years, it has been a vital part of the practice and thought of Druids in how we conceive and discuss the world. This idea that he talks about he puts it in Eladir's voice, but at Philip Cargom talks about, this is why we don't see a lot of Druids in high rises, that we don't live high up. We want to be close to the earth. There is this idea of proximity in Nwyfre that is different from an all-encompassing energy. It's not this like static background radiation. It is something that is akin to life. And I mean that literally. It's akin to life. So you need to be where living things are to have access to it, whether that's a living fire, living water, a stream, or a healthy pond, lake, sea, whether it's in the trees and the grasses, the flowers. The further you are away from those living things, the further removed you are from Nwyfre. And that is actually a really interesting idea in this idea that is all throughout Druidry, which is our connectedness. Because it's not that you can't be a Druid that lives in a high rise. It's that that bond is stretched because those living things, the living earth, the living soil, the living plants are so far away from you that connection is stretched.
I think a way to talk about it on a practical level, you can go to a city, you can visit certain parts of the city, and when you're just kind of feeling the energy, there are certain parts that are just, they're very dead zones. They have very just low energy feel because that Nwyfre is just so stretched. But there are other parts of the city that are very alive. And a lot of people will talk about, oh, this part of the city is so alive. And it's because it has this life force energy that is still there. It is still connected in, because of a spot that is not alive, it's because it has been disconnected. As one practices more, you can learn to tap in. Sometimes you have to tap a lot deeper. It's kind of like a tree trying to find water with its roots. Sometimes you just have to drive those roots really, really deep to try to find that water. It's still there. It just might be buried under a bunch of dead concrete and stuff.
Yeah, it's
But
I do like this image, because this is why we see a lot of people, even if they're not practicing Druidry, like filling their balconies with plants and flowers, and filling their house with plants, because they're bringing that nature in. They're bringing that life in to these places, and they really do feel alive. I mean, think about it. When you go to somebody's house or even your own house and you see that greenery, the place feels more alive.
yeah, it's why a lot of psychologists will go, hey, you want to feel healthier, you want to feel more alive, have a plant, get a house plant, put some flowers up in your house. And it does. There's suddenly just more life in that environment.
Green light has been shown to have a positive effect on our mental state, because we evolved under the light going through tree leaves. So we feel safe, we feel at home, still like encoded into us when we experience that kind of dappled light coming in through the trees. This is something that you can actually do with artificial lighting, though I will say you get more bang for your buck going to a forest. You can do this at home. If you can't do this, it's one of the things that we would often do in the winters. We would change our lights to kind of a slightly green hue, kind of a warmish green hue, to bring that kind of feeling into the home.
I think this is also like along the lines of talking about the lighting and bringing that life energy into one's environment. when you study the concepts of Hugi, part of that is that those warm lights, the softer hues, changing out your lights to get rid of the harsh whites and put in those softer hues, candlelight, because once again, like candlelight is that living flame.
Now, the one place that I would take the book to task a little bit is in its description of food, because it talks about like the fresh food for food is where you get the most Nwyfre. And while there's a big part of me that will agree with that, there's nothing like the rejuvenating power of a fresh tomato right off of the vine. I grew up on a farm as a kid, and there is something to that fresh food thing. But this is part of the magics that our ancestors learned, where that we can store that life and store that energy like you get in dried beans or various rices that are dried and fermented, and various grains that are dried and fermented. Like there is a life to that as well. And there's also something to be said about the life force that we can connect to in fermented foods, from your misos to like your kimchis to a really good pickle.
Also, where I like to remind everyone of our favorite mantra: better is better, but you don't want to just throw something out because it's all you can get. If you can get something still good, like canned goods, there's quite a few canned goods, like with the tomatoes, they can still have a lot of flavor and life in them because they are tomatoes that have gotten way too ripe to try to ship. So they pack them in cans, which then preserve them. And
This
so
is
there is something there. Like in the middle of winter, opening up a can of stewed tomatoes is going to be much more enlivening than not having any tomato, because it's the middle of winter and it's not like you have a garden outside to go pick.
this is where we need to be careful with not making the perfect the enemy of the good, as we like to say a lot. Yes, fresh is best. Frozen is also good. It preserves a lot of that freshness and a lot of that life and a lot of that energy. But there's something to be said for the power of a good fermented thing. A nice sourdough bread. We have what we call our two pets, we and Bob, our two kombuchas that are kombucha pots that are sitting on the table, just generating life. Like energetically, as somebody who is sensitive to energy, like you can just feel the life radiating off of these two jars. And that's what they are. They're little batteries that are storing up energy that we're then going to bottle up and have. That kombucha feels like almost having a magic mana potion to me. Like my energies are low, I need a kombucha.
Yeah. Oh, it even acted as a life support system for one of the plants that unconsciously tried to kill. I tried to had a house plant, and I actually had it near there that I was trying to keep alive, and not very good at that. I was slowly killing it. I think I underwatered it because I got distracted and forgot, and then I overwatered it, and it was unhappy about that. It was just like normally I would have killed that plant within a month, and it really hung on for a good like 4 or 5 months. It was way longer than normal, and I really think that was because of the proximity to the kombucha, and it was kind of like on life support, drawing from the life energy from the kombucha to try to hang in there before it finally was done in.
So Nwyfre is one of the three states of spiritual energy. This is the other difference really between Nwyfre and what you would hear in the discussion of chi or prana or ki. Nwyfre is not the energy itself. That's actually called manred. That's the actual energy that we're talking about here. Nwyfre is really the only state of manred we talk about, because it is the one that floats. It is the one that is moving. It is the one that is accessible. It is the one that we have most access to. Second would actually be the Guyar, which actually comes from the word blood. And then you have the Kalas, that is it in its kind of solidified solid state. Like Nwyfre is actually a state of spiritual energy, a not the spiritual energy itself. And that really, when you bring in that full image, that full understanding, you start to see how you can concentrate things down. Like we were talking about using these dried fermented rices and grains and what have you. That's what's happening. You're concentrating that Nwyfre down into that. The word there is actually stone or earth. You're concentrating it into the stone, and then you're waking it back up through the cooking process and the preparation process to bring that Nwyfre back out. There is an ebb and a flow here and a nuance in the way we talk about and we think about this energy that I I know exists. I know there is a lot of this nuance in the East as well, because I've studied Tai Chi and Qigong and know that there are words for all of these states there as well. But to the Western audience, we generally only talk about Qi. We only talk about the feng shui. We simplify and exoticize these ideas to the point where they are not related to the original philosophy that gave rise to them. And I think to a certain degree that happens sometimes with Nwyfre, that it's just simplified into energy. And it is the most energetic state of this kind of spiritual force that we were talking about. It is the most accessible state of this energetic force that we're talking about. But it's just that it's a state of it. And so when you're thinking about when you're feeling tired, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling cut off, that that energy is still there. It's probably slowed down into one of the two slower states. And a big part of this practice is starting to learn to see that, learning to identify that, and realize when this energy has solidified, when it has turned into a fluid. Because we don't want it to be a fluid, we want it to be a gas, right? We want it to be in the air and so we can move it, manipulate it, and breathe it in, and have ready access to it, filling all of our cells, right? So learning, what do you need to do to heat it up? What do you need to do to get it to melt back down and to get back into the flow? Learning those tricks really helps you. And I know I'm probably getting comments about Charlie, you're being vague again. But again, these are things that you're going to start learning, one, from your own practice. But there are simple ones. Like for a lot of us, brewing our cup of coffee, we are literally enacting this because we're taking a dried fermented bean, right? We're processing it, probably through some kind of grinding, or we're getting it pre-ground. We're then putting it into the hot water to release all of that water, all of that energy out into that second state, that fluid state. And then it fills the air in that third state, that Nwyfre. And think about, when do you start waking up? You start perking up when you smell the coffee. Yeah, you still have to drink it in. You still need to get it into your system in the other two states as well. But that energy hits you initially from that smell of, right? You smell the bacon cooking, breakfast is on the way, right? It's that energy in the air, that smell of it. And so for a lot of us, our morning ritual for awakening the Nwyfre in us is making that cup of coffee, that cup of tea, whatever it is that we're having when we first get up, because we are literally going through these three states with the physical item that we're doing to bring alive those three states in ourselves.
There are three other little simple practices I was going to go ahead and share that I found really helpful to awaken the Nwyfre around. The first one is just taking a simple, mindful, deep breath. Just inhale and then exhale. Just a real simple that will really stirs everything. The second one is just a simple loud clap. Just one clap. Just a That's it. It just kind of shocks the whole environment. It wakes everything up.
I would like to
Sure.
add that inviting a singing bowl to sing or
Yeah.
a bell also has that wonderful effect.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have a singing bowl or a bell, either of those are amazing ways of waking up the Nwyfre around. The last one is just, you just basically stomp or tap your feet a couple times on the ground and then just let your foot just sink into the earth and just be in that moment. And that's another one that really centers and wakens up the Nwyfre, more the telluric energies in that particular one. There's many others and much more complex ones. It was something I really liked that he addressed in this chapter as well, when he was talking about there are those out there that are very sensitive to energy and to Nwyfre and have a natural aptitude to working with them. Everyone can learn to be more sensitive to it. Everyone can learn to work with it. It's not just a thing for those select. They're just ones that they get a head start, they get a boost. But for the rest of us, it's simply doing those meditations. There's quite a few of them. We actually put a series up on the Hollowstep podcast of meditations that can be done. And through repetition of them, you learn to become more sensitive to those energies. You learn how to feel them and to know when they're there and when they're not, and how to direct and feel the flow of them as well. It's just through that repeated practice and that exposure, you become more aware and sensitive to it. It's kind of like when you do something for a certain period of time, like a task that you repeat over and over again. After a while, you just know. Say you do a 5 minute task over and over again, and suddenly you just know 5 minutes have passed. You've been doing something completely different and know, oh, it's been 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. It's because you become sensitive to the passage of time of 5 minutes. Along that same line, through these practices, you just become more sensitive and aware of those energies that are out there. I
If you,
really liked it.
and if you really want to go deep with this, because I was going to do something similar to this, and then she did, and I just started pointing stuff to people in her video on YouTube. The Norse Witch, about 3 months ago, did a video called "How to Train Your Psychic Abilities." So if you just go to YouTube and search "The Norse Witch, How to Train Your Psychic Abilities," she talks about a lot of this from her tradition and point of view, but gives a very powerful series of exercises to help you connect to this ability to connect to the energies of the world. They're really good. They're really powerful. And they're not something that I would feel comfortable trying to summarize here. She spends about 30 minutes leading you through these different exercises and gives a lot of other resources to actually connect with this. She actually did a really good series that follows that with Spirit Communication 101 and everything. And though her practice and my practice is very different, like it's very different, we do share a lot of things in common, and learning from each other is really powerful. So if you really want to connect it into this, if you're like, well, I don't feel the energy, well, one of the practices in there is learning which of your senses you actually detect it through, because you might see it, you might smell it, you might feel it, you might have it as a sense of touch, you might taste it. There are different ways that you can actually experience this through your various senses. And that video takes you through an exercise to help you figure out which of these is your strongest connection, and it helps you build from there, if that is the path that you want to go down. Nwyfre is an amazing thing to connect to and to interrelate with. It is something that we need to connect more to our modern life. I see Nwyfre in our phones. I see Nwyfre in just coursing through our house and the electric lines. I think that there is energy in there. I think there is life, and it's not just electricity. I think that there is a power flowing through there. And I'm not going to go through all this now, because I almost feel like I need to ask the teacher that I got the language from permission, because it comes from her family practice. Like it's been handed down from generations in her family. But there is a very strong tradition that I've heard from several different teachers over the years of the difference in this kind of constructed, engineered energy that we build through human effort, and this natural energy, and that it's both kind of aspects of the same energy. And it's a really interesting idea when you start getting into it.
Before we wrap up for today, on the topic of looking at the energies of everything, I thought it'd be fun if you shared a little bit of one of your little passion with the photography of the energy of life.
Oh, the Kirlian photography. I have such weird feelings about this because I was introduced to Kirlian photography, which he mentions in the book, through some very, when I say hippie, I mean, like, I know one of them, one of the people that was at the table when I was introduced to it was actually at Woodstock hippie, like some very hippie kind of new agey places. But this type of photography that lets you actually see the flow of energy through things. And this is something that we have learned more and more and more about. Like, humans glow. Like, we actually glow. If you put a human in a dark enough space with a sensitive enough camera, you can actually see the light emitted. Like, we don't glow very bright, but we glow. There is an energy that just flows from us. This is actually what an infrared camera is actually showing. When you see those thermal images, it's actually showing you the energy coming off of the plants and the earth and the people and the animals that you're seeing in there. We have developed many ways to actually visualize this energy, these fields of energy that are just constantly being emitted around us. We all have kind of an electromagnetic bubble. We are generating constantly around us. And like I said, there are these various techniques that I've just talked about that to actually film it and photograph it that are just fascinating. What I really feel in a lot of this is that these are ways that we are trying to help ourselves understand that this sense of separateness that we have is such an illusion. Because why is it feel so comforting just being in the room with somebody else? Well, yeah, we can talk about the oogie boogie energies of being there, or just knowing that a friend's in the room and the emotional comfort of that. But you're literally, both of you are pouring light, literal electromagnetic energy into the room. Like, before getting into any of the woo stuff that science will tell you isn't real, like, you're literally putting this out there. And I think that's a lot of what we're feeling. I think that that's a part of our sense of each other, and that connectedness and that closeness, getting to understand that separation really isn't there, that we don't see all of the particles in the air because our eyes have evolved to ignore them most of the time. And they're so small and spaced out that the light can kind of pass through them. But there's an entire soup, an entire just cloud of particles between where I think I stop and where the cat is next to me. Like, we are literally touching through this. That empty void space that our brains perceive isn't empty. It's filled with this alive, flowing sea of energy where heat is being transferred and electrons are going around, or floating around and being shared and traded off, and photons are just flying through it. And that's not even getting into all of the neutrinos and all the other crazy things that are in the soup. Like, the time we've been doing this podcast, billions of neutrinos have just passed through your body, and you didn't feel any of that rain that is constantly pouring down on you. The universe is a magical, mystical place, even before we get into any of the witchy stuff. And when you start seeing that, you see the energy fields around leaves and fingers and people, and you see those amazing night vision images where you see the heat, literally the heat energy that's coming off of these plants and people. And you realize that there is something between us. Like, we are all constantly connected. Like, space isn't empty. For anybody who tries to tell you that space is empty, space isn't empty. It's just the particles are so spaced out. We can pretend that it's empty. And that's what we're doing when we're seeing these void spaces. We're pretending that there's nothing there. But there's a whole sea between you, that you're touching through that sea of particles. And there are living things floating in the air around you all the time. Like, everything is alive and floating with life and energy. And I think the more we come to realize that, I know it makes me feel less alone. And I hope it helps you feel less alone. Because I think this disenchanted world that we've been forced into, no, my energy fields are literally interacting with your energy fields. And that's before we get to the spooky stuff, because it's the heat from my body and the electricity and the EM field that is just generated around my body. It's interacting with you. It's interacting with the people around you. That interaction is happening all the time. We're not alone. We're not isolated. We're not disconnected. We are all just interconnected in such deep ways. I love Thich Nhat Hanh's wonderful word of just, we're interbeing with everything always, because we are. And it's magical when you see these pictures and get to actually see that energy flow. Just a reminder of that flow that's going through us that unfortunately our eyes can't see and our skin can't feel. We like to think of how advanced our senses are, but in so many ways they're so limited. It's good to be reminded. I love that he brings up Kirlian's photography in this chapter, because it's astounding to look at. Just look up an oak leaf or a maple leaf in Kirlian photography. It's astounding. Well, I'd love to know your thoughts about all this. You can leave us a comment if you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify. You can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they won't let us know. So leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to creation.com, and there, click on the chat, and you can leave us a message there, and we'll be able to see it and get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am C. Dorset on both. Or if you want to give direct, you can support us through the Cash App, hashtag Creations Paths. Thank you to everybody who does that. You all mean the world to us. You help us keep the lights on, keep food on our table, and just keep us going. If you don't have any money right now, or you're not sure that we're the kind of people you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that's fair and completely all right. But if anything that we've ever said has helped you out or you think would help others, please share it with them, because that really helps us out more than you could possibly know. And as we're going out today, we normally say a prayer. And instead, I just want to do something special. We're going to just take a moment and breathe in and breathe out. That every breath that we take is a prayer to the universe. Because in our breathing, in our breath, you can hear our fears, our anxieties, our excitements, our joys, our laughter. They're all carried in our breath. Again, breathe in and breathe out, and know that every breath is a prayer. Amen.
Amen.